Hello everyone, welcome back to my series looking at the CBSI Hot Top 10 from 6 months ago. Today we'll be looking at the list from the Hot Top 10 list from July 27th, 2018, and I'm recording this on January 25th, 2019. As a reminder, my goal for this series is just to help myself and my fellow collectors understand what made these books get hot at the time, what's happened since then. Have they remained hot? Have they continued to gain momentum? Have they fallen back? What are the factors that maybe have caused either of those things to happen, so that we can all be a little smarter and wiser with our money in terms of, and learn, what are the books that have good potential, what books don't, and just be a little smarter in our purchases. So without further ado, we're going to go back to July 27th and see what was hot then and see what we can learn learn from it. So, one thing, this list I think will be a little more informative than my first episode of this, just because that first episode was dominated by San Diego Comic-Con cover exclusives. And this list has got a little more of a mix of, there is still one of those in there, but there's also books that are related to, that spiked related to TV shows or movie rumors or just things that were happening in the comics. So I think this gives us a little more well-rounded list this week. The first book on the list at number 10 was Teen Titans number 45. This is the first appearance of Bumblebee. At the time, CBSI wasn't sure why it had kind of spiked, but it jumped up to $20 to $25 for a raw copy. What strikes me as maybe still being a little bit low for the first appearance of a character like Bumblebee. She is one of the few African-American female heroes in the DC universe. And it strikes me as it may be a character that potentially gets used in movies or TV shows more so going forward. But for now, the book has actually fallen back just a little bit. It's back down to the $15 to $20 range. And that the listings are still in that same kind of $15 to $25 range. The thing I found interesting about this book is, despite it was a 1976 book, is that there's only 30 copies in the CGC census. So there really aren't any slabs out there. People really have just never latched onto this book in any way, shape, or form, which strikes me as maybe it's a book that still has some potential. Number 9 is a book that we saw last week. It's Cosmic Ghost Rider number 1. It is the J. Scott Campbell San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. This is a book that at the time, well, last week when I looked at it on the list, they said it was going for $75 to $80. Now we've jumped up to, by July 27th, it was going for $100. Now this book can be found raw for $15 to $30. With listings currently on eBay a little higher than that in the $30 to $35 range, but almost all the sales have been less than that over the last 2 months. The last slab that sold was a 9.6, and it went for $100, but that was clear back in October. And there's very few slab copies of this book that are actually out there anyway. So this is a book that is really, like most of those Comic-Con exclusives, it's just really dropped off. Next on the list is Lock and Key number 1. And this book spiked because of the announcement of a Netflix series. And at the time, 9/8 copies of this had jumped from around $200, a little over, to all the way up to $400. They were going for $400 when this list came out. Now they've clearly dropped all the way back to what they were going for before. 9/8s are going for the $200 to $250 range. Although there are still several listed on eBay in that $400 range, but most of the sales have all been back down in around the $200 range. Next up, we have number 7 on the list, which was Stars and Stripes number 0, which is the first appearance of Stargirl. This book spiked with the announcement for the DC Universe online streaming show that was going to be related to Stargirl. So when that announcement came out, this book jumped up a little bit. It was going raw for $25 to $30. And it's since dropped back to the $15 to $25 range. With no recent slab sales of this book, there's another book that doesn't have very many copies actually on the CGC census. Currently, listings are still in that $25 to $30 range, but there's only one slab that's on eBay that I could find, and it was a 9.8, but it was signed, and they were wanting $475 for that. But I don't see that as a very realistic price for this book. But this was a book that kind of like the Bumblebee book, kind of rose just a little bit and then just settled back down to probably a price fairly similar to what it had been going for before. Next up, we have number 6 on the list is Rift number 1. This was hot because there were option talks at the time. I don't know if it ever actually officially got optioned, but it was going raw for $30 to $40. Since then, it has fallen back, and now it's a $10 to $15 book, or even less. On eBay sales, there were a few that were actually under $10. It's a 9.8. There are a few copies out there. They're going for $60 to $70. So this book has dropped back considerably from what it was going for back in the summer. As we move into the top 10, we move into Edge of the Spider-Verse, but not number 2. This is number 5, the first appearance of the Spider Robot and Penny Parker. And this was the 1 in 25 Greg Land cover that was spiking at the time, with 9.8s going for $400 to $500, and raw copies going for $75 to $100. The regular copy at the time was going for $10 to $15, the regular cover. But now this book, since then, the Spider-Verse movie has come out. She was in it. Everybody loved it. But the 9.8s have come back down. They're now going for about $300. And that's where most of the listings are on eBay. Raw copies have held steady for the land cover in that $75 to $100 range. And then as far as like, if you want to look at the regular cover, it's jumped up a little bit. It's in the $20 to $30 range for a raw copy of it, with slabs 9.8s going for just over $100. So this is still a book that has jumped some with the movie and that kind of stuff, but it's settled in and has been pretty stable over the last 6 months. The next book is Teen Titans number 20. Again, a 1 in 25 variant cover. This is the first appearance of Crush, Lobo's daughter. This was kind of a hot book with rumors and everything about just people were psyched to hear about Crush, that there was going to be a new character. At the time, it was going for that $30 to $40 range. Now it's actually going for $40 to $60 for a raw copy. And with slabs going for 9.8 slabs going for about $200. And that has been fairly consistent over the last couple months. So setting in that $40 to $60 range is what a raw copy could be had for. And slab a 9.8, you're looking at about $200. As we move into the top 3, we're going to have 2 books that are fairly similar. The first is Thor, God of Thunder, number 2. And if anybody's been reading Venom and Donny Cates stuff, then they know why this book spiked. It was the first appearance of the Necro Sword, and everybody went kind of crazy about this. At that time, the variant cover was going for $150 plus, while the regular cover was sitting around $20 for raw copies. Now you're looking at prices that are kind of a little bit all over the place for the variant cover, but with most of them going for as low as $20 and as high as $100. It just depends on if you get it on an auction, those books are not going for very much, but the buy it now prices are still up around $100, so people are still paying that for the variant, even though if an auction comes along, you can get it for much cheaper than that. In terms of 9.8 sales, there's been almost none on the variant cover. This is the regular cover that I have a picture of, that CBSI had a picture of. Regular cover is going for the $10 to $15 range, and for around $100 for a 9.8. So this is a book that's cooled quite a bit, but it's still got a little bit of interest in it. When we move into number 2, this is a book that has cooled quite a bit. This is Infinity Wars number 1, the 1 in 25 variant. And this was a book that was super hot over the summer in the lead up to Infinity Wars. sorry, Infinity Wars Prime #1 is what this book is, and leading into Infinity Wars. And this was the first appearance of Requiem, which is a new character that was going to be all these things. Well, CBSI warned at the time, as you were reading this, that if it turned out to be a character that we all already knew, then this book would probably cool. And that's what happened. It turned out to be Gamora. The book then was going for $65 to $80 right after it came out. Now you can be had for $10 to $25 for a raw copy. 9/8 can be had for $60 to $70. And those are the prices pretty much that you can find in most of the current listings. So this is a book that dropped way back once it was discovered Requiem was not actually a new character, but was actually just Gamora. Now we'll move into #1 on the list, and another Thor, God of Thunder. And this is the first appearance of Null. And so in the summer, this book was going crazy. It was up over $75 for raw copies. It went from, dollar bins to $75 right off the bat with just how hot Venom was and everybody on that Donny Cates run. Well, now it has dropped back considerably. It's going for $20 to $35, so it's still got some value, but not near like what it was in the summer. A 9/8 can be had for that $150 to $200 range, and listings currently are looking at $200 to a little bit higher than most of the sales. They're still asking $35 to $40 for most buy it nows, but you can typically get it for cheaper than that. So that's our list for this week. We had, like I said, we had several different variety of books, some books that spiked related to movies or TV shows, some books that spiked related to things that were happening in the comics. Overall, most of the books, once again, have fallen back from that peak, which is not a surprise. When a book is hot, it's probably going to be a little higher than it is going to stabilize at probably a little bit lower rate. But first appearance of Crush has still slowly has gained a little bit of ground since then. Edge of the Spider-Verse #5, first appearance of Penny Parker with the movie now coming out and being a success. That book has maintained its value as well. The 2 Thor books have dropped back some. Infinity Wars Prime has dropped back a ton just because it wasn't actually a new character. So with that, I think it gives us some things to think about in terms of, if it's actually a new character, if the movie actually turns out to be good or TV show turns out to be good, then there's potential these books are going to continue to maintain value. But for the most part, it appears you're looking at this list, you're looking at books that are at their peak or, and are probably going to settle for a value that's a little bit less than that. So with that, I will let you go for this week, and we'll see you next week as we look at another CBSI Hot Top 10 and we move into August. I'll talk to you later. Bye. This week we're going to be looking at the books that made the Hot Top 10 in July of... Really? You're not very helpful. No, you're not. This is Harley. Yeah. Throwing it by your butt. You're going to get down. I'm not going to keep this in.